Hello and welcome back everybody to the latest edition here of the Quantum Compass. Today we will be looking at the Red Magnetic Serpent Wavespell running from the 24th of March to the 5th of April. There is quite a bit to discuss in this most chaotic and turbulent of times. We have a Saturn Cazimi coming in, Venus conjuncts Chiron, which feels pretty important. Mercury is back saying hello to Black Moon Lilith in a square. And in amongst all of that, we have a full moon in the 13 sign system in Virgo, as well as Good Friday and Easter Sunday, just to round out this wave spell. So a lot to get our teeth into, right, Bella?
Yes, hi, and we're quantumplanet.world. If you're new to the channel, we talk about astrology. We have a line to the 13th sign, true constellational astrology. We also talk about Mayan cosmology, the latest energy updates, and also look about plants and nature. So
That's right.
a lot to cover in this one.
Right, that's the alchemical fusion that we have brought together over the last 4 years as a partnership and with our tribe. We love all of our brothers and sisters out there. Really appreciate the support that many of you have given us both through the YouTube channel, through the YouTube membership as well in some cases, but most of all over the years with the journey work, the immersions, the courses and everything else that we've all been learning together to level ourselves up for this moment. For this is really the moment where all of the work that we've all been doing is going to come to the test. Have we really done our inner work, or have we been doing bucket list ticking in between going to the movies and having dinners and all the rest of it? Or are we actually walking our talk, right? So anyway, it's all about where we're at, and there are final initiations incoming, and perhaps we should just dive straight in, Bella, and have a look at what they are, right?
So what we're going to do is do a review of the current wave spell. You can go into the presentation.
Okay.
And as we do that, so we do a quick review and then get into the new wave spell. So the show is specifically about the Red Magnetic Serpent wave spell, which goes from March 24th up to April the 5th. And we'll start with a review here with the big event that happened, which was Jupiter and Three-Eye Atlas being really close together. Three-Eye Atlas got to 0.35 astronomical units. That's the closest that it has been to any of our planets. And from what we know, this is something that has been planned for eons, even before the Earth was created. So just to have a little perspective of how important what is happening in the planet and in the solar system is right now.
Right, and there are some interesting reports out there, and of course, these days we're all understanding that anything that comes through the screen, even we have to say our own show, of course, for everybody out there, everything needs to be run through a certain level of discernment. But we did see a very interesting deep dive into the precision which Three-Eye Atlas entered underneath the belts of Jupiter, came in at a specific point where it could do a sort of accelerated slingshot.
So you use the gravitational pull from Jupiter to be able to propel to exit the solar system.
Right, exactly. So it came in underneath the elliptic orbit of these moons, but at an angle where it hit precisely that. So we could say that that's really a grand cosmic series of coincidences for it to be that precise, or indeed, as this report was tending to suggest, particularly because the NASA probes had blacked out at that exact moment, despite having been working since they were made, the very moment they probably were designed for, they somehow went offline. I don't think this is the first time this has happened around Three-Eye. So all humor aside, some very profound things have been going on. And I think that Three-Eye Atlas has delivered the payload that some of us were expecting.
And then we had this very important equinox moment, which we feel that is a few days before and a few days after of energy, of balance and rebirth, and we're going to go more into that rebirth energy with the wave spell of the serpent as well. And we're talking to us and the Master Zac about the amount of energy in Pisces at the moment, which is very important to bring all of that empathy and compassion for this moment humanity is actually going through.
Right, so if you haven't already seen that particular transmission on Equinox, I'm sure probably most of you have, with myself and Bella and the Ascended Master Zachariah of Assyria and our dear sister Janet Tzolkin. Please do check it out. It was very, very powerful. I think one of the clearest, most powerful transmissions we've ever done with Zach in this case. And he was really, really banging the point about the need for equilibrium. That is what equinoxes are about, both of them, depending on which part of the world you're in, but spring and autumn, and the need to be in that place of equilibrium, not to get pulled up or down on the scales, because in this next period, particularly with the incoming Serpent, it feels like that's going to be what's needed to stay centered.
Something that was very key about what he said is that the energy, the vibration you're emitting during the time of an equinox, same as a solstice, but specifically an equinox, is very important, because that's what you are informing the field and nature and the planet that is the energy that you want to hold. So it's very important to be able to come to a point of balance within yourself and with the people around you. That's super key.
Right, and if we sort of need a visual understanding of how that might look, it's simply the yin and yang symbol. It's not too much light, not too much dark. It's perfect equilibrium in duality. Now, duality and polarity are not necessarily the same thing, but in duality, there is a lot of polarity, and there is a lot right now. And if we want to move through this next period, really this ways, but I think what Zach was trying to impress on us was the need to stay non-dual, which leads to non-polarization.
And one very important thing that happened also on the equinox is that Mercury went direct, which should help us now with the amount of misinformation and miscommunication and fog, not only in the media and internet, but also in our lives. All of that miscommunication and fog should be able to start getting clearer now. And we'll talk more about these towards the end in the astrology.
Right, and also here, Bella's highlighted Neptune, Saturn, and the Sun conjunct. Well, we had the Neptune Cazimi just literally a few hours ago this morning. We are recording this on the 22nd of March with the blue crystal night, day of cooperation energy, as we normally try to. So already the Sun has gone into exactitude and combusted Neptune, but really the incoming Saturn Cazimi, which we'll look at, is just a few days away as well. But with these two planets being fairly slow moving, we can say with a 2-degree all by the side that this double whammy conjunction with Neptune and Saturn and the Sun has been going on for probably a few days already, and is going to continue for a few more days.
Because it's the first conjunction and Cazimis after Saturn and Neptune had their own conjunction, which was huge, changing of an era as well. So lots of changes and big changes. We already talked about this in the last episode, but just to remind everyone that this equinox is the moment when the light descends to the planet. We get a direct impact from the sun through the equatorial line, and all of the sites around the planet, whether it's in Mexico or the pyramids in Egypt, or even many buildings that are constructed to receive the energy, many cathedrals are designed to receive this energy of the equinox on the main day during the whole day. So just a reminder that the whole planet has received that impulse of an impulsation for equilibrium and for rebalancing.
And if you're looking for an uplift, you can also understand, particularly now in the northern hemisphere, that we're now with the light in the ascendancy. So the majority of the population of the world is now going to experience the light in ascendancy. And of course, our brothers and sisters in the southern hemisphere have just come out of that phase and are now holding the opposite end, all of which is important because it's about bringing balance. As one has more light, the other has more dark. And that's how the two always remain in polarity, remembering that the dark is not evil or bad, it's just without light.
And so we're completing this Wavespell of the yellow human. It's been very intense, especially in the geopolitics of the planet. We know that the Neptune Cazimi even highlights that, because Neptune and Pisces are connected to oil as well. And all of the situation around the planet is connected to oil and much more, but also water and many other things. So it's part of everything that is happening, is the rebalance of karma at this moment.
Right, exactly. I'm glad that you've highlighted that. This is a moment where every piece of karma that needs to be rebalanced, realigned at the end of an epoch, as is always the case at the end of an epoch and a resetting, it all needs to be rebalanced so that we enter the next phase without bringing any of the baggage of what was the past forwards with us.
And all of this happening in the true constellational astrology, which goes from March the 10th up to April the 20th. All of this energy of the equinox and 3i Atlas and this next Wavespell, all within the same energy, because it's a big constellation in the sky.
Right.
So anything else you want to add before we go into the Mayan cosmology?
So I'm just looking back at my notes here, and March the 10th is actually when Jupiter went direct. And it was also a cosmic tone that day, the blue cosmic monkey.
I think all of the planets are direct at the moment as well.
You
So
can
that
well be
should
right.
give
Yeah,
us a lot of
Mercury's direct.
energy.
Yeah.
Right, so let's go into the Mayan part. And with the Mayan cosmology, I cover the year that we have, that we are actually under the resonance seed year. That's the bearer of the energy from July to July, from the 26th of July up to the 24th. And it's the energy of activating the cosmic seeds. And that's everything that has been happening for all of the star seeds in the planet. People are getting aligned with the true purpose, with their energy, with people being more authentic, getting activated with their gifts, what they want. Their cosmic self is getting also more active. So all of the things that are meant to happen during this year, we've seen, is like the self-germination process of the cosmic humans that we are.
Right, and it's really beautiful that tomorrow, in the rounding out of this Wavespell of the human, that we finish on the cosmic seed, because we are really cosmic star seeds ourselves. And I think that that's a really beautiful analogy, and one that's actually true as we move forward into this next Wavespell of the Serpents.
Correct. So we're still in the 9th moon. There are 13 moons in this calendar. It's a solar lunar calendar. We follow the sun and 13 moons. And this solar moon, that's the name of it, is all to do with the intentions that we put here, wanting to realign with nature, with the spiral of time, the spiral form of the galaxy, of our DNA. And part of that is realigning to number 13. So that's why there are 13 days in a Wavespell, 13 months in one of our years. And now we've realigned with the 13 sign constellational astrology as well. And so this solar moon of intention, which goes from March 7th up to April the 3rd, has a very important totem, which is the Jaguar. And the Jaguar is telling us you have to be a shaman during all of this period of time, because a lot is going on behind the scenes that not everybody gets to see, a lot going on in the astrals, a lot of hidden stuff as well. And we need to learn to be centered and work with the elementals, work with our medicine wheel, and be able to move through this process.
And I think be discerning.
Be very discerning, yeah.
I mean, we're probably singing to the converted here. And again, we're saying that having a presence ourselves on the internet and with everything else. But if you take any kind of 5 to 10 minute pulse through any kind of social media, as we sort of have to do in the work that we do in the world that we live in, to see the various narratives and threads that are being either created or pumped, projected or whatever, as opposed to the ones that we intuitively and internally feel, what we can say is that it's become very apparent in the last 12 months that now the majority of content on social media is not being produced by humans anymore. Unfortunately, it's very, once you watch a few channels, you can really see it clearly. And so this is why we're mentioning this, because the Jaguar really wants us to feel what resonates and not just what sounds good or what you want to hear, because they're not always the same thing.
Yeah. And the reason why it's such an important totem for this moment is because the Jaguar rules the underworld.
Right.
It's the wizard, is the shaman that can go into the underworld, but it's also in this realm. It helps us see the unseen as well. And one of the most important questions for this moon is, how do I shine the light for others? What is my true intention after all of the work that we've done and where we're at the moment, which Zach told us, we're at the cusp. We've gone beyond the turning point. We're at the cusp. And here is where there's no turning back. We're all going forward. And it depends on how much humanity manages to come together and overcome what the elites and the small people that have always tried to control the destiny of humanity do. So it's a very important moment for all of us.
Right, we've often somewhat humorously in some moments and not so others, other times kind of liken this whole experience to being on a roller coaster. It's like you get to the top of the first major peak and you're still excited, and then your belly drops out to the middle of nowhere and you plummet down and you're like, I don't think I want to be on this ride anymore. But then you go back up the other side and it's like, oh, it's not so bad. And then you drop down and it's like, oh no, I'm feeling sick. That's a little bit what it's like at the moment. So if you're out there feeling the roller coaster effects, I would suggest that it's probably par for the course, because I think pretty much we all are. This is where having that centeredness within doesn't allow you to take off too much when the energies are good, and not to sink too much when you're feeling a bit queasy. All of which is quite probably happened to you all, including me, over the last week. So physical symptoms have been a part of it: tiredness, nausea, dizziness, body pains. I think we've had all of these from people and felt them ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Which I find it interesting that we're coming to the Serpent, which is all about life force and Kundalini energy.
So besides the 13 moons, we have the sacred round, which is a cycle of 260 days, which represents the gestation process of a human being, the plantation of corn. So it was used by the Olmecs and Mesoamericans thousands of years ago for agriculture, ceremonial purposes, and even as an oracle. So now that we entered the Tzolkin, we're going to enter this totem, which is the archetype of the Red Serpent. It's a very important archetype. It connects with our energy, with our life force. And this Wavespell is also starting the third castle, which is the blue castle of transformation. So what this tells me is that whole process of what we're experiencing in the Middle East and much more that we're not seeing, it's the moment of transformation, a whole castle of transformation for the planet, as we have gone on we have already started the third wave of ascension. They started in October last year. During the solstice, we had yet another wave of this, and this equinox is pushing us to the cusp. So this castle of transformation starts with the energy of the Red Serpent, which goes from kin 105 up to kin 117, with 10 galactic activation portals. There are only 2 of those wave spells in the whole Tzolkin, and this is one of them, one that has 10 activation portals. And what that tells me is that the energy is really high, and there is a lot of potential for our ascension and for everything that we're doing as cosmic humans, becoming cosmic humans, and the Earth going into a 5D. But there are also many forces trying to stop the process from happening. I don't believe they're going to succeed, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be challenging.
Right. So sometimes it's interesting to look through the wave spells that give the form for a particular castle. And here it's the blue castle of transformation. So we start, if I'm not mistaken, Bella, with the Serpent. Then it's the mirror wave spell. And then I think it's the monkey, and we finish with the seed. Is that correct?
Correct.
So sometimes if we just think about those 4 different movements from red to white to blue to yellow, in each castle, it also is donated by the wave spells that are incoming. So we have Serpent to mirror to monkey to seed. So we have bringing, well, I just wanted to allude to that. Do you want to add anything to that, Bella?
I like to not give too much so that people find it easier to follow. But every single castle has a lot of information, a cycle of mini stories, fractals of 52 days with 4 wave spells, each one of them story. And what I try to do is like just give the highlights of each wave spell here. But the blue castle, just to put it here, it's mostly about the big transformation, a lot of emotions as well. A lot of emotion can be expected because it's connected to the element of water as well. And maybe water in our planet as well. So
right. So I was just sharing that perhaps for some of you who've been following the Tzolkin for a while and are able to deal with looking at some of the mini stories, that if you just look at the 4 wave spells under the banner of transformation, you can feel into how each of those 4 different energies of serpent, mirror, monkey, and seed might feel in transformation, and work with the energy that way, because it's a really nice way to round out this castle of transformation, because we have the seed, which is very much the energy of the resonant seed year that we're in, but also feels to me very much like what Zach talked about on the Equinox call, and the need to go back to nature and work with nature's seeds, which is also, we're also part of nature's seeds, right?
yeah. Correct. I think that's what is happening for all of us. We're activating all of these.
And of course, also just in this blue castle, we have both of these epics. So almost half of the entirety of this castle is with galactic activation portal days. Not quite, but almost entirely.
That is why I think is the transformation.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of what I wanted to allude to. Do you want to explain a little bit more about the galactic activation portals for people who may be not sure what they mean?
Right. So there are 52 is these green boxes here in the calendar. They are days where there is more energy, more access to the Akashic or to the field, where there is more flow. So whatever you put into them is magnified, amplified. So you want to be even more in equilibrium with yourself, pay more attention to the energy you're putting out there, because then it's like solidifying the energy field and what you're anchoring. But you can also access more information if you are center and you've been clearing yourself, because this wave spell is all to do with purification as well. And just like the serpent shedding skin, this is a good moment to be reborn and to reinvent yourself if you want to do that, if you're ready to let go of many things. In fact, I think it's for the whole planet. We're going to have to let go of many beliefs, of many institutions, of many financial systems and structures and ways of doing things, so that humanity can move forward. Right. So let's go more deeply into what it means. I put Quetzalcoatl Day there on day 2 because it is a Quetzalcoatl Day. I'll talk about what that means in a minute. So this wave spell starts with the serpent and ends with the cosmic earth. It's a journey of 13 days with a pulsar, a red pulsar, that is talking to us about the birth of new things. And the energy of the serpent is all to do with reconnecting with our instinct, with our life force, and with our passion and compassion, because compassion means doing things with passion, not just feeling empathy for others, but it's to be able to reconnect with that energy, with vitality. That's what the red serpent comes here to remind us of, and the energy of survival. But so far, humanity has been kept under the lower frequency of fear and lack and anger and everything to keep us in a level of survival that didn't let us thrive naturally, but out of fear, just trying to compete, trying to survive. But this is a different way of survival mentality that we need to switch to. And this is what the serpent is here to tell us, that we can reconnect to nature, to our body wisdom, to our creativity, and the energy of desire for a better world, desire for happiness, for peace, for everything that we want, and being able to use the Kundalini energy. This process is very important because after we do this purification, the renewal starts happening for the rest of the cycle. And in our body is also connected to our nervous system and our reptilian brain. And one of the things that has been very affected for the last, I'd say at least since 2020, but this is longer than that, is people's nervous systems. They are so delicate. I can say it because of, like, I can't drink the same amount of coffee I used to. I need to be grounding more regularly. I need to exercise more so that I can process the amount of energy. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. We get lots of feedback from our tribe saying, you know, what kind of symptoms people are going through. I don't know if you want to share anything around that.
Well, I just alluded to it before. Maybe I jumped the gun a little bit, but it feels as if anything that's not resolved from the past, whether emotional, spiritual, physical, has been being brought up for all of us really probably since 2020, not because we necessarily asked for it or wanted it to happen, but because it's been needed. And here we are at this wave spell of really the very alchemical energy of the serpent beings. And maybe we can allude to about that a bit more, how to read this energy. But it is all very much about our Kundalini energy, our life force, and perhaps us as humans waking up to the fact that we have not really had our full life force available to most of us for most of our lives. Some part of our life force has been coerced away from us, signed off in false paperworks and identities, or just straight up siphoned by non-physical things that we can't see, from our food, from the air, pretty much everywhere. There's something trying to siphon our energy pretty much at all times. And over the last 5 years, I think it's become more obvious to more of us that this is going on wholesale and has been throughout all of our lives. And perhaps this is a moment where we need to call on our own survival instincts of our own inner serpents, not necessarily, I've written it here, that this is a survival through cooperation, not in the traditional snaky way, which is I'm going to survive at somebody else's expense, which is what we see from or have seen from the establishments and the leaders within those establishments who are purported to be there in those positions to look after us or to support us as the collective. We've now come to the realization that some of these beings, and this is the lower note of the snakes, as we should put it, are these people. And so duplicity has been very much in the public eye in recent times, particularly the last couple of years. So all of this is coming up into the awareness through the serpents. We're dealing with serpent politicians. We're also, that's on the lower note, but on the higher note, we're also wanting to call on our own higher serpent energy, because it might be that we need it in the incoming Wavespell, maybe just to brace ourselves. So I think that this is really interesting, Bella, because of all of the symptoms that Zach has talked about in the past with the light inflammation. We've experienced it really strongly this last week in our bodies, right? Things that maybe hadn't give us any pain for a while, like an old knee injury, for example, or in my case, a little finger that's suddenly displaying arthritis, whatever it might be. These body messages are telling us where the integration of the higher energies coming in are making our bodies have to adjust in an uncomfortable way. Yeah. If you're super prone to these energies, then maybe sleep has been difficult. Maybe your sleep is much reduced. Certainly I can subscribe to that. And we're also finding some days, right, Bella, that it's hard to put your energy to something, just staying grounded and well, just staying grounded, basically. Yeah. Do you want to say anything about that?
Well, we'll talk about some plants at the end that will help. But for now, is the awareness of the energy that is available with these. There is shadow as well to be paying attention to, like, for example, not following your own intuition. Right. Or, for example, what is very likely to come up, and I'm already seeing it, like lots of people thinking like, what country am I going to go to avoid the war, and blah 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 blah, all of those things. So there's going to be a rise in the fears to do with security, some anger issues, blaming, judgment, and more separation, which is exactly what we don't need. And those beings that are in charge of what is happening, creating more division, they know exactly what they're doing, because they don't want humanity to unite and to come to that place of compassion and unity consciousness and transformation, and everybody dreaming the same dream and bringing peace to the planet. So we need to be ahead of the game, seeing what the plan is, and being just like the universe, always with a plan to counteract whatever. And nature and the universe always have a plan well ahead of any of those things that could happen.
Right.
And so part of the challenges are going to be around survival and fears. And the other one that Quetzalcoatl is showing us here on day 2 is the world bridging. So people wanting to let go of the old world, which doesn't serve us anymore, but there is still a lot of attachment to what we thought was good. But actually we need to be able to let go, to be able to receive and create and build a new one.
100% agree, and I think that's a really good point, Bella, because that actually happens on the day of the Saturn Cazimi. So the old Saturn structure now fully demolished, now being combusted as well. Saturn's been through quite the pieces, we've humorously pointed out over the last year or so. But also, for those of you that are into the Stellar Nations pathway, you can also read a lot of this through the male and female serpent energies. And there is a lot there that will help all of us, if you follow that pathway, understand the energies at work in the world right now, because it's a lot to do with those beings.
Right. So we'll go into the astrology after this part, because it is very important what is happening. I just wanted to show here what actually happens on the 20th of March, or on the equinox, is the serpent light effect comes down, and so is the descendant of Quetzalcoatl into the ground, is the moment to start a new cycle, to put your seeds in the ground, is marking the beginning of a whole new season as well.
Is this Quetzalcoatl here in the middle?
Yes, it's
It looks like he's come out of some sort of pod, right, as a gaseous energy, which is kind of how Zach was describing the fairy energies on the call that we did with him, the transmission. Because look at this, it does look like something's open, like a seed pod, and this sort of spirit being has emerged, some a bit like a genie in a bottle almost. I hadn't noticed that before. Anyway.
And so why is Quetzalcoatl important at this moment, who is the same as Kukulkan? So Kukulkan was before Quetzalcoatl, because that was the name that the Mayan gave to this being. He's a deity for the Aztec culture, but he's also connected to Venus and the sun and the merchants and arts, crafts, knowledge, learning. He was the serpent being that brought all of these. He was also the patron god of the Aztec priesthood. But as Kukulkan for the Mayans, he was the feather serpent, also had all of these previous qualities I just mentioned, but he was key in all Mayan mythology, symbolizing the connection between the earth and the sky. That's why in the pyramid that I just showed you is the perfect representation and honoring that energy descending from the sky to the earth. And then in the other equinox, it goes back up. So he was associated with creation, with the rain, with fertility. And obviously that's why it's in so much architecture and mythology around. But it also symbolizes the duality of life. Light and dark is the shadows, the shadow effect of the serpents. It is about the earth being the serpent and the sky being the feather. So that's what the feather serpent represents. And since this is the Wavespell of the serpent, we can't but talk about Quetzalcoatl here as well. And you can see in different codes and some of the remnants of the Mayan scriptures that the serpents were absolutely key. It's very important symbols representing different aspects of life, death and rebirth. Obviously Kukulkan, and it carried on to the Aztecs, as you can see down here. Instead of being called the Tzolkin, it's called the Tonalpowali, which is also a calendar of 260 days, and it also has serpents representing the Trecenas, or the 13-day wave spells. So super key, the energy of the serpent at a cosmological level, at a physical level, at an energetic level, because it's the life force energy that we connect to when we reconnect with our desire, with our heart desire, and with our passions as well. Anything you want to
Well,
add?
just what you put here in point 2 is also important. You know, serpents are seen as symbols of rebirth and renewal due to their ability to shed skin. And of course, humans can also do the same thing. I mean, we shed skin all the time, but I mean, in a more figurative speech, this is very much like Bella's just, I think, highlighted really strongly, is that there are many things that have not served us in our world that we really need to let go of, and we shouldn't be afraid of letting go of them for fear of the unknown around them, but perhaps celebrate that these are many things that probably most of you watching are in agreement with us on, that they're things that we've seen for a long time need to be released. The serpents are the best beings to help us with this.
Right. And to wrap up the part about the wave spell, these are the questions. You want to have a clear intention for this wave spell. It could be to do with healing, with overcoming survival and fear issues, with renewal, if you want to renew yourself, with purification. So there are many different topics that would be great for this wave spell.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll keep on talking about this, because these beings are the perfect representation of balance and heart wisdom. When we talk about Shiva and Parvati, they're also connected to the wisdom of the life force energy and reconnecting to the heart.
Right. 100% agree. I mean, if we're not sure about the ambiguity sometimes of the serpent beings, we only have to look here at Lord Shiva and Parvati to understand that Shiva always has a snake on his shoulder, and he is the perfect avatar of non-duality. And then, of course, we have the two young people down in the Garden of Eden about to eat the apple of temptation. And who's there? The snakes, of course. They're in the background. So, you know, snakes are often a bit like Marmite, loved and loathed in equal measure. But having worked with the Stellar Nations pathway, working with those aspects of some of our off-planet DNA, it's actually, there is a lot to admire about the qualities of the serpent beings and the healing that they bring, the teaching that they bring, and at the same time be aware that sometimes snakes speak with forked tongues. So there's a lot of that in our world being shown now, how many of our leaders have been speaking with forked tongues.
Well, even more than that, I mean, it is the moment to review our lower and higher octaves of anything to do with the serpent behavior and energy. So if you're still doing shady things, being secretive, talking about other people, giving judgment, or doing certain things that are of a low vibration, that would be the lower nodes of the serpent. But if you're capable of transmuting and ascending, and bringing all of this wisdom now of the heart, you should be able to tap into the higher octave of the serpent, which is all to do with healing, all to do with transformation, and even knowledge and even more wisdom. So this is the invitation, I think, during this whole wave spell. And all of the work that we've been doing with bringing into alignment the female and male serpent, it's all to do with bringing that awareness back to the collective consciousness of that. One of the ways for us to ascend is reintegrating the energy of the serpent, because it has been demonized for a long time by religions, when it is actually not only the connection to our kundalini and life force energy, but also back to the galactic center and above in our ascension towards Aquila, which is the eagle, and the phoenix energy. So it's like our gateway for ascension through the galactic center is through the serpent, which is what is called now Ophiuchus, but what is important is the serpent that is there.
And I don't think it's any coincidence that this Wavespell of the Serpent has all of these galactic activation portals.
Yeah.
For me, really, the galactic activation portals are a day where I take the tone and the glyph and I try to access directly the galactic center to talk to the part of myself that exists in the galactic center, because the channel is really wide open. And if you do that each day with the different glyphs and tones that are on offer, you will get different types of information that comes through. But the tail of the serpent is always in the proximity of the galactic center.
It's the tail or the head as well. So, but what is important is to recognize that there is a cosmic serpent in the sky that is showing us the way back, the way of ascension, the ascension ladder through the galactic center. And until you bring that awareness and constellation into your chart, you won't know where you have this important point, which is what we normally call the galactic center. So we can move into the astrology, since we're on that topic now. And what we were saying about the compassion being the main topic as humanity goes through this whole process that the elites are putting us through again, it's about us coming together as one again and saying, this is not what we want. What we want is this, and we want to create something different. And it requires many of us to overcome differences of religion, of races, and many other things. Because if you think about it, we're just but one planet, and there's no reason for us to be so divided inside this little planet as well.
Right.
So the Pisces season in the 13th sign constellational astrology goes from March the 10th up to April the 20th, and is asking us, having Saturn there, to be more mature spiritually and in every sense, more impeccable, more compassionate, and to have more empathy. I have a relative in the Middle East that is in the middle of these things, but many countries are affected by what is happening now, from flight cancellations to all sorts of things to do with energy at the moment, and water and gas. Things are just going to completely bring us to a point of like a brink, the brink point. And we need to be resourceful, adapt, more sympathetic, use our intuition, and heal ourselves, other people, and always be in service. I think we're going to be needing to connect with our neighbors and with our family for this process that the earth is about to hit.
And of course, Pisces in the zodiac is the end. It's the end of a process and then the beginning of a new one. And I think it's fitting that a lot of the energy right now about structural change in our world is sitting in the energy of Pisces, which we're going to see in a second.
Right. And so I'm just going to show this, and David's going to go deeper into the astrology. I just wanted to show in a stellarium, this is March 24th, which is day 1 of this wave spell, and you can see the Sun and Saturn pretty much conjunct. Venus is still in Pisces. Mars just exiting Aquarius, together with Mercury as well.
Neptune's probably being blinded by the light in there somewhere.
Yeah, it normally doesn't show it, very tiny, but it is right next to the Sun and Saturn as well. And you can see the Pegasus constellation just above Pisces,
Right.
which you talked
Yeah,
about.
if you haven't checked out the Cosmic History Code special, and myself and the sister Leslie get into why in the 13 moon system, Leslie has subscribed the Pegasus energy for the intentional moon. It is the moon of the Jaguar, but we've been having fun looking at the 13 stellar nations through the 13 moon system because it also works that way too. So please do check that out. Lots of juicy intel for this moment, a really good resume of the energies.
Yeah. And so tropical astrology will say that all of this is already happening in Aries, but I like to show a stellarium so you can have a real look at where Venus is. It's right in between the two phases, and Saturn, Neptune, and the Sun are there in Pisces still. And the moon, the full moon, is a pink moon. It's happening in Virgo at 9:12 Central Time. This is PM time. And I love it because it's in the constellation of what is being called the Maiden, but I want to start calling it the constellation of the Goddess, because it's the biggest constellation around us in the ecliptic. It has the most amount of galaxies and so much. It's so big. It's like a birth giver. It's like a womb. It's a goddess always giving energy. And so this specific pink moon that is happening on April the 1st is also about renewal and rebirth and emotional growth, which is everything to do with what we just talked about with the wave spell of the serpent. And also about letting go of stagnant energy and embracing the new beginnings. There you go. Did you want me to?
No, you carry on.
Okay. The last thing I'm going to mention here is I've been doing the galactic astrology on 13 sign sidereal. So if you want to find out which are your fixed stars, now this system is giving us more fixed stars that you can connect to your stellar nations. But with this galactic astrology, I see it as the evolution or the evolution of our connection to the cosmos. It's bringing the 13 signs, it's bringing the galactic, the fixed stars, and it's a good way to integrate your galactic DNA and to reconnect to your stellar family. And the way I see it is through this process, which we went through about 2-3 years ago while we were doing the whole stellar nations, it's like you can access the 4th, 5th, up to 9-dimensional worlds through your galactic astrology and realign with the stars and the galactic history. So if you're interested in this, is a new offering that I have on the website, or you could just email me if you want to know your galactic astrology.
And of course, you also do galactic Mayan activations, right, Bella, which also lends itself into this. So this is a sort of multi-layered approach to assist us in getting to know who we are better. And of course, many of us in the tribe and watching these videos have been applying these to ourselves pretty much since we rolled them out, especially with Stellar Nations now over 3 years ago. And it's been incredibly transformational. And it's also given us all a bigger and broader canvas on which to understand even things we've talked about today. We couldn't have described a lot of this 3 years ago in the same level of depth, but because we didn't know this information about ourselves.
So you could, for example, what we were talking about, if you want to know which female serpent stars you have on your chart or male serpent stars you have on your chart that you can work with, right, or winged lions, or whether it's dragons, angels, whales, dolphins, any of those stellar nations, felines. So you can find them here and they know how they have been working for you, what karma was attached to them, and what is the redemption process and moving forward.
Right, and even though there's no formal agreements between the 1320 dream spell way of doing things and the stellar nations, through the work that myself, Bella, and Leslie have been developing over the last 3 years, we can see that there are many correlations, and the two systems have actually, through our own fusion as a tribe, have worked really, really well. And as we were talking about with the serpents here, we can also read this serpent glyph through the energy that has come through from what has been shared from Stellar So it gives us a much bigger space with which to look at what's going on for ourselves, but also what's going on in the collective, because what is going on in the collective is very much connected to the snake beings. If you understood the Stellar Nations pathway, this is some of our galactic history still playing out here in the earthly realms, and needs to be resolved so that we can all move forward ourselves to be becoming galactic citizens. But we can see this in the misalignment in the astrology. If we think that we've already moved into the new place and the new beginning that Aries would indicate, then why is everything still going on that says we haven't finished yet?
It
doesn't make any sense.
Demolition process,
right?
Pluto.
Right. So if the demolition process is being started after we believe that we've just planted seeds, we're going to be demolishing buildings on the crops that we're trying to grow, which doesn't make any sense. So for me personally, and everything that we've been sharing and Bella's been highlighting, it makes more sense to understand that with Saturn now just being about to be combusted and Neptune also being the ruler of the deep, we can understand that maybe things hidden in the deep, in the waters, are about to be brought to the surface, and those things that were constructed as edifices are now about to collapse, which kind of suggests a leveling both from the ground up or beneath the ground, the water level, and from the top down, which to me seems much more appropriate in the energy of Pisces, which is about how we as the collective are going to deal with all of this so that we can have that brand new, fresh, dreamy start in Aries, but without having to still be picking out the seeds from amongst the rubble, right? So anyway, it's just another way of looking at this, but perhaps as a precursor. Shall I move on, Bella, to the astrology?
You go.
So really and truly, compared to other Wavespells, there perhaps aren't some of the absolute clanger, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am moments that we have sort of already experienced, but there are quite a few still pretty potent moments. So we'll just run through them quickly. We've already alluded to a lot of them.
Yeah.
The Saturn Cazimi is really the sort of the big oomph moment on that lunar world bridges. So that's a day where we're probably going to world bridge out of whatever the combustion of Saturn looks like, because it's a lunar tone, it's a challenge day. So I would suggest that that could be a day when structures in our world go poof, or poof, or maybe something else. The same day, the sun in Pisces now, right, is sextiling Pluto in Capricorn. So that tends to suggest that even in amongst some of the other energies, that the sun is still wanting to make good with the universe. He's looking at the guy furthest down and saying, hey, Pluto, there's some slightly rough energies. I've got to have a really big moment with Saturn here, but let's try and smooth out some of the more peripheral stuff to do with misuse of power and make some things smooth. So it could be a bit of a day of mixed energies, but with it being lunar world bridger and a Saturn Cazimi, I think you summed it up nicely. This is a day where we need to be able to let go of the old Saturn structure and move into the new one, which is in Pisces. So it's all about how we all do it, right? So Neptune has already had his moment, and Neptune is a planet of spirituality anyway, at home in Pisces. So the process for Neptune being Cazimi'd in Pisces, I don't think is quite as severe for Neptune as it is for Saturn. So after that, we have the first of the goddess moments, which is when Venus, we can say the heart, the goddess, is conjuncting Chiron, the wounded healer, also in Pisces. We can see over here it's happening in the late degrees. There's still a little bit to go because it is a big sign in the 13 sign system. So what do you think, Bella, about that one?
I'd say it's a very important moment for the collective to do with a profound wound that we have as a collective, maybe things that we need to heal at this point. I feel the whole planet is in that point of vulnerability, and people's fears are very tangible there when it comes to the situation the planet's going under. So it's going to bring more of that space of unconditional love. We need to jump into unconditional love, and everything we were saying about feeling empathy and compassion for others is the only way forward to be in our heart, to overcome the wound that the collective has of separation.
Right, to me, it's very much, it's the wound of the heart. Can we move forward, all of us, with our hearts open, or are we still opening it when we feel it's safe and then shutting it again if we feel betrayed, slighted, put upon, disrespected, any of those things? It's very much in the collective ether. Certainly my meditations recently is that there's a sense of we all want to move forward, but when we look at the people who are offering how that looks like, it's like, we don't trust you. and with good reason. But this is a weird moment. It's like maybe we should be trusting because the energy is asking us to, even if in Jaguar style we can't see what's really going on.
And it could be that they take us to a point of like a deep heartbreak as a collective, which forces our spiritual awakening, or the one for the masses at least. And we need to use all of that pain of separation to feel even more connected again. Can we overcome that and get into, okay, we're one, we need to work as one?
Right. So, without going into any rabbit holes, there are deadlines in place that already suggest that right as this wave spell starts, we could be in for a big slap moment with the collective. And with that Saturn Cazimi on the white lunar world bridge and then Venus conjuncting Chiron the day afterwards, it tells me the beginning of this wave spell is likely to be when the difficult news and information is going to reach the collective, whatever that might be. It may be that it's something has already happened that we can't see, or that something is about to happen. But if you're taking a pulse on anything, you should know what I'm talking about. We then go to day 5, the 28th of March. And I got a little confused when I was doing the slides earlier because I had this twice, and I also had it down for the 16th of March. And I realized that's because the word to Mercury squaring Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio in the month of March, I'm assuming because of Mercury being retrograde. So Mercury is again going back to another aspect of the goddess here in Lilith and saying, are we all good over there in Scorpio, or are there still some things from the nastiness way down in the underworld that still needs to be brought up for us to have a little bit of a look-see about, now that we've got the boss, Saturn, and the structure that was defending some of these things, shall we say, out of the way? It feels to me that with Saturn, the system, really, the matrix, we could say in some forms in astrology, now being removed by the sun. And of course, there are big incoming CMEs literally today or tomorrow, which could shake, rattle and roll the whole planet as well. It suggests to me that this is going to come up for a bit of a final review. Is like, do we really have the stomach or the heart for any more turgid stuff from those files, or are we willing to let them go? What do you think, Bella? This to me still feels like we're talking about those files a little bit.
Yes, I do feel that there will be even more information, more shocking information, that the Mercury is direct and Black Moon Lilith still in Scorpio, talks about really dark, shady things, maybe to do with, with children or with horrible things that have happened for a very long time, and the amount of people involved. That is one of the most shocking things.
My gut feeling is that with everything that I sense incoming on the global stage, this might be an expose of certain people on that global stage suddenly being put into the spotlight of what have you done exactly. And there are a bunch of players in that space. But whatever we might think in a 3D sense, I definitely would not make any judgments about anything until you've meditated quite extensively in 5D, because what you see there and what you see on the TV are not at all the same thing.
And let's remember that we're talking about the global scene, but this plays as a fractal in our lives. So that's where it would talk to me about friction that could happen in communication with people around us, emotional and hidden truths, more transformative shadow work, like the big final chunk, about integrating personal power, facing emotional baggage or hidden agendas. All of those things could be part of our reality now. And the work that we do in ourselves is the one that we want to put out. Healing all of these parts is very important now that we have these galactic activation portals, because every bit of healing that you put into the grid with gratitude for the lessons learned and with your intention to move forward with compassion is what needs to go into the grid. The more of us doing that, the better.
Right, well said. And just looking here at where Mercury is here in Aquarius at 12 degrees, it is actually conjunct the North Node. Yeah. So this is all about the future, but it is also really still only in a 2-degree orb to Vesta, the sacred flame of the heart in some way. So if we factor those in, we've got Mercury in Aquarius, which is sort of all about what's coming in the future, even about innovations and all those kinds of things. But it's here squaring Black Moon Lilith. So it feels like, what is it that Mercury wants to tell us as we move into the future about maybe some of the more turgid, hidden stuff of the past with Lilith in her own sign of Scorpio?
I think until we know our true history, which is part of what we're going to find out humanity can move forward. We have to see it, accept it, digest it, transform it, and move forward with compassion. It's quite a process.
It is. And maybe this full moon that then just follows a few days afterwards is another big hit from the goddess, because it's a full moon in Virgo on April Fool's Day. Not that there is such a thing, but it is full moon in Virgo, and as Bella's already outlined, a lot of the energy here in the astrology, when we looked at it earlier, right, was speaking to us through the goddess, and of the integration of the feminine being restored, being accepted, understanding also that there are new rules. Everyone's having to come to an understanding that the new earth we're moving into is based on different rules. Many of us probably have grown up not liking the rules because they were given to us by a system that we didn't agree to. However, as we move into a more unified Pisces conscious collective, we all need to understand that making agreements, common law is one way of understanding this, and sticking to agreements. If the true value of our words is dependent on how much we keep our word, then this is also a motif that the serpents have long led us down on, but also our own serpent selves need to level up with. It's like, is my speech impeccable? When I speak my word, does it have a value which I hold to, or do I just say things in the moment to get some challenge off my back? It's all part of the same energy here with the serpent. So I think this is a moment for us to assess, like you've already said, in ourselves, but also to assess the power players. And also, again, this is much more difficult to understand that everybody is playing their role as an actor in the theatre. Each one of us at the micro level and some of the big players at the macro level, we all signed up for this. And this is the moment where all of those contracts that we signed up to play, those characters are coming to a place of culmination, which is kind of my way of saying, we need to have compassion even for the people that we think are the real rotters out there, right? The ones that we really think have done wrong by everybody.
And even overcoming that sense of victimhood.
Right.
Because if we get stuck into that, we were victims of all of these and they did this to us. Now we need to bring compassionate strength to move forward from that place of victimhood, because otherwise we're also stuck.
Well, here's another way of looking at it. If we can understand that we agreed to be a victim, so to speak, in that way, then we must understand that we did it for a reason. So if we're going to be victims, then we need somebody to be the persecutor. So these people were just fulfilling a role that we asked them to do, really, whether it's on a grand, macro, or a more personal micro level. We're all just actors, and we should never take any of this personally, but understand this is a grand piece of constellational work that we're all doing to role play our way through the experience, the experiment, the sim, whatever we want to call this reality currently. So I don't know, it's just different ways of looking at things that perhaps in a non-dual meditation, certainly I've found useful. So this is where things get a little more crunchy, I think, at the end of this Wavespell, because we veer into the biblical realms, all of which feels very on point with this being the Wavespell of the Serpent this time out, with the 10 galactic activation portal days, with most people on YouTube saying that this is some sort of Armageddon moment in various different ways. And here we have the crucifixion and the resurrection, just to add a bit more spice to it all. Well, I think that those stories don't really serve anybody anymore. I don't think any of us really need to see people nailed to a cross to understand that that's how religion should be followed. I don't think that's really served us that well for the last 2,000 years. So maybe, Bella, and we talked about this before, how can we all move through belief systems that are somewhat wedded to this when the people involved themselves at the time were not even in that belief system themselves?
Right, and this is part of what the conversation was, how the amount of different religions, they started from the same place, but then they all separated and took little bits, and then they all decided to go their own way and go against the other ones, which is not the process of this point where we're at. We need to leave all of that Piscean sacrifice and way of doing things in the past to bring the new earth, to bring a new way of doing things where we're compassionate, but we're all helping each other, and we're all looking forward to having a peaceful planet that thrives, and that we can take care of this garden of Eden that is the earth as well.
Right, you know, say this at the risk of potentially triggering some people, but everything that's going on in the Middle East is through the Judeo-Christian religions, basically Christianity, Judaism, and the two forms of Islam. And so that's what all of this is about. And yet all four of those various different aspects of Judeo-Christian religions all basically follow the same God.
Okay, so I'd like to
Sure.
clarify here. It's not that that is the reason. The religions have been the way that they had manipulated the minds and hearts and the energy of so many people. But there is very advanced technology under the Middle East. We're talking stargates and very advanced technology that most of humanity don't know about. Besides, is the hub where most of the energy for the planet in terms of oil and gas and all the resources, that is a hub that whoever controls that or takes control of that is going to control the prices, the currencies around the planet, the distribution, the shipping, everything that happens in the planet is very key. But what you were saying with the religions, I think, is just the mechanism on how they were able to manipulate.
So it's a ruse, basically.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bella. That's the point I was coming to, is that really, if we step back from this and we say these are all groups who basically follow the same thing, then why the hell have they been fighting each other for 2,000 years, right? Well, because it was not really their design. It was somebody else's design, because they knew this point in the future was going to be about the resources and probably the space technology, as Bella's alluded to, which actually mostly comes from our ancestors who were the serpent beings.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on in here in this, and that's why this Wavespell is so important. So we round out with more goddess action here on Good Friday, Venus squaring Pluto, which I think on Good Friday seems to have a link for those of you that would want to follow that little thread. Again, Venus is really asking big questions. She conjuncted Chiron. Are we healed yet now? We're going to square Pluto. Is there still tension about the unseen peripheral things in our world? Are we still believing what people tell us, which leads to terrible things like the crucifixion? Is that still the modus operandi that the masses, the collective, are willing to subscribe to, even though I'm sure at the time that many people thought it was wrong, they still allowed these things to happen? If indeed it ever happened at all, and we have to put everything now in those disclaimer speech marks, because everything is under review, but that's just going with standard history. And of course, here on Easter Sunday, just a couple of days later, it is the day of the cosmic tone, and it's Easter Sunday, and Venus is the final kind of word, along with the sun squaring Jupiter. But Venus is sextiling the North Node, which I'm hoping is going to give a nice kind of polish to everything that Venus has been trying to get us to be aware of, but also really so that we move forwards into the future with a clearer idea of who we are and what our heart's desires are.
Yeah, that is a really nice harmonious alignment. But hopefully when we go back into our heart and what's really valuable to us, which is the heart connection with other people and having time and freedom and all of the things that we want, hopefully becoming more humanitarian. And that is probably what Venus can help us do at that point with that sextile, where when we all decide to go the same way through the connection through our heart and our minds. We need to connect the same ideas and the same heart of everybody to be thriving and safe and happy and peaceful and all of those things.
Right, so in essence, that is the astrology. I have pulled up the charts for the full moon, as we usually do, just as much as anything for references. Have you had a look through this, Bella, and seeing anything else that you wish to bring into the mix?
What is that, the full moon?
So we're coming very close here. If we look on this one, we're coming very close, surprise, surprise, to a Jaguar Cazimi.
Oh, wow.
May even happen on the Easter Sunday, but it's already basically in a 3-degree orb. So I find that super fascinating. Then we've got Artemis, the really the progenitor of the whole Artemisia plant species, but also the feminine goddess of the hunt, who gives birth to her twin brother Apollo and many other things. She's coming into a conjunction also with Chiron.
So David is looking at the asteroids and those points on the tropical.
This is on the tropical system, mainly because it's the only way we can get.
And the one on the left is the 13th sign constellational astrology. And so when I look at the left one with the moon, the full moon at 19 degrees of Virgo, look at the size of Virgo. It's a huge constellation full of clusters of galaxies, and it's amazing, that whole sector. So what that full moon is telling us is reminding us more purification, because that's what Virgo is going to tell us, is the purification for the planet, I think, but it's being done with love from the goddess. Hopefully, we need to do an analytical review of all of that.
Look how beautiful this is. Now, Quercus, the embodiment of the oak tree, that is the name of the oak species, the genus is Quercus. It's absolutely conjunct with Venus. So we can understand in many ways that the oak is representative of the world tree, representative of kingly energies, of being in service to the collective. The oak is really one of the most resplendent celestial beings you could ever hope to meet. I think its qualities are of the highest order, and Zach even talked about this on a previous call. So we have two of our plant friends in this household, both the oak and the Artemisias, very much part of our life, part of our garden, and they're in key configurations. But I think the one that's catching my eye, Bella, is the incoming Jaguar Cazimi. Last time out, that happened on a very powerful moment. And here we can also see that Atlantis is also still in the mix. Down here, it's actually in a wide orb with Neptune now, and also with Mars, which perhaps is a little ominous. But
you know what else this moon confirms? The moment of harvest. You know how the goddess, how the Virgo constellation has the speaker where she's holding the wheat.
Yes.
So I think it's a moment of harvest for humanity, where the experiment of eons comes to the challenge point, the cusp, and we are all under the test. Can you overcome your fears for survival? Can you still go into your heart? Have you done your inner work? Are you ready for the next part?
Right, in some ways, you're actually alluding here really to Ceres, and she is already now in orb conjunction with both Venus and Quercus.
I was talking about the moon.
I know, but you were also you were talking about the goddess of the harvest in many ways, which is Ceres, and so we can see that in two different ways of looking at it, both with the moon, but also over here, Venus is coming into conjunction somewhat with one of her sisters, we could say, but with the oak in tow. So I think that's very earthly. It speaks to me of the abundance of Earth. If we treat the Earth correctly, if we work with the co-creational forces of the Earth, the elementals, the Fae, if we respect them and acknowledge their role in our world and make sure that they're treated in the same way that we as part of nature would also like to be treated. And I think this is a huge part of what us as a collective, Pisces, society moving forwards have had enough of. Like I think many of us are sick of seeing our home being raped and pillaged for people to make money out of it. And I think that that's a big part of what Earth has also had enough of. So anyway, some extra points there. Anything to round up before we have a quick look at the planets and conclude today's show?
I think the astrology is strong. We should talk about the plants probably that will be helpful for this very kind of cuspy moment, as Zach was calling it. This is the cusp.
So these plants are all part of the mix. I've included a little friend Tarragon here because it's another Artemisia. So we've got two Artemisias in the mix. The main one we're including here is Wormwood. So we're not going to talk about these plants from standard herbal points of view because we've done that a lot. And those of you who are now following the plant transmissions, the spring collection, and getting involved in the QPW plant treasure hunt, and if you're wondering what's that, how come I don't know about it, head over to QPW and get involved. We have a bingo card of plants that we're all out in nature looking for, which is a really exciting and fun way of getting us all outside and getting our feet on the grass and getting excited again by new friends and old friends. So we have 3 old ones here. So I put these 3 plants, if taken over a 10-day period together, will help do the following. It's not an exact thing. We always say when plants, it's best to douse on it. Use your own body medicine. And which medicines to use? It can be capsules, it can be tea, it can be tinctures, it can be salves. But the most important thing is that you're making a connection to these 3 plants and asking them for assistance, right? So first up is a really old friend of ours in our tribes, which is Lady Wormwood. She is the probably par excellence parasite remover. Her dear sister, another favorite of ours, Lady Mogwart, is also very effective. But the difference with Wormwood is that she can really remove any off-planet vampiric energies, i.e. some of the things that we were talking about earlier on. As tea, she's incredibly bitter. Some people really like that bitterness. If that's too much for you, either have it with some honey or maybe take some capsules. Anything you want to say about Wormwood on top of that, Bella?
No, probably there is a Wormwood moment that we've come to, another biblical moment, and we need to take Wormwood. This is not medical advice, by the way, but it is a powerful plant to remove parasitic energy, not only energetic but physical as well.
Right, and of course, Bella's alluded to the Bible, and the moment that Wormwood appears in the sky is quite a critical one. And so I think that we should not write Wormwood out of this story, either as a star appearing in the Bible, or perhaps more importantly, as a plant that really deals with things from space that have not been nice to us. So there's a lot to chew on there. Dandelion is, of course, the wonderful plant that we all love it to be, but mostly we've included here because of its ability to remove heavy metal toxins, which is a pretty constant process, as many of you following us for a while will know we've talked about, but also unhelpful nanotechnology. It has come into my awareness again over the course of the last 12 months that this is still being put upon us without our permission, mostly from above, but also from other sources too. And of course, Dandelion is well known for being a liver cleanser. So if you are getting triggered by all of these things, which we could understand, Dandelion's here to help you move through that. Now, we've included Horsetail, and I didn't include one of the main reasons which you work with Horsetail, but Horsetail can remove graphene oxide, black goo, for those of you who know what we're talking about, and many bioweapons, a lot of which emanated apparently out of laboratories around 2019, 2020, if you catch my drift. So this plant is really, really good at removing those, particularly if you use it as a preventative medicine. But Bella, what do you also use this plant for, which is probably useful today even?
So it brings more silica into our bodies, making our cells stronger and more protected energetically and physically, which is becoming more of a crystalline being. We're going from carbon-based to silica-based beings, and this is a wonderful plant that has one of the highest levels of silica.
Right, and you also use it when there are solar flares.
Oh, yeah, that's the other one. So when there are too many solar flares and the nervous system gets affected, at least I'm very sensitive to it, and Horsetail is perfect for that, to help me regulate. It's like a semiconductor. It helps regulate that amount of energy that is coming to our nervous system.
Right, so of course our beloved Ascended Master Zac alluded to this a long time ago about the light inflammation, and we have proposed, based on our quantum experience and also with Zac's guidance in the background, that both Horsetail and St. John's wort are plants that will really help modulate the amount of light coming in. Not because we want to stop it, not at all. We want the light, but also if you have too much light in one go, it can be quite ungrounding and even a little challenging if you're not used to not being fully in your body. Too much light has the possibility of actually freeing the glue that keeps us in our physical body. That is why St. John's wort is always prescribed around summer solstice to help with this process. So I've talked about this in many previous videos, and I'm sure many of you have seen that. Anything you want to add, Bella?
No, I want you to talk about the sacred book.
Okay, so we are now into the second volume of the Sacred Book of Nature.
Thank you to everybody who's part of it and who is contributing actively. It's been amazing.
Yes, not least of course, Zac himself has been very much in and around this whole process. He guided us to this place. He's in the book himself in a variety of different guises. But what we have discovered in the process of doing this is the soul star activation process that Zac wanted to share with our tribe. And so many of our tribe have jumped in. And what we're understanding is that through the process of reading from the Sacred Book of Nature, which is what we're all doing, we're learning to channel what is really inside of us, the plants, the elementals, the fae, but really and truly our cosmic human selves are now finding a voice in a fifth dimensional co-created space in conjunction with a blueprint that has come from the universe itself, which is the Sacred Book of Nature.
It's beautiful.
It's really beautiful. It's gone in all kinds of directions that we didn't expect, but also running alongside that is Dristan Skywalker's. Well, there's also the Nature's Gift as well. So I'll just come to that in a second. But there's also this ongoing series of the Spring Collection, all of which is looking at plants from a new Earth quantum perspective. That's every week. Plus, of course, there's a free weekly live call about the plants at the moment. But all of this comes off the back of what Zac had shared with us way back in December, which is this. Nature's Gift is a quantum plant healing first aid kit for the matrix and personal collapse. I think if you've watched all the way up to this point in the video, you'll understand, or maybe we're just talking to a handful of you at this point, you'll understand why this Nature's Gift is important now, because this matrix and personal collapse, this is what's about to happen if it hasn't already happened for you. Not because we're doom and gloom merchants, quite the opposite. We're happy and smiling because we've already been through this process and we know that on the other side, everything looks good. It doesn't have to be arduous or ominous. You're going to listen to a video, receive healing transmitted code, both from myself and Bella, but most of all from the plants, the elementals, and indeed Zach in the background. And all you have to do is sit and listen to a wonderful narrated story that will really open up the connection to your inner child. And when that happens, the plants can get in at a quantum level and start healing physical, spiritual, emotional issues and traumas. It's what we have been guided to do, to share from the nature realm itself as the easiest way of receiving healing for people at this time. So it's super affordable. You can find it on our website. If you go to the menu bar at the top, you will see plant transmissions and Nature's Gift Sacred Book and the plant videos of myself and my counterpart Tristan Skywalker from the New Earth Greenhouses. We're now coming to an exciting plant this coming week, which is Borage, a wonderful plant with a very Venus shaped flower. Really amazing.
Or Borage.
Well, we're going to have a contest. Is it Borage or Mr. Borage? I think I'm more with the latter because it involves having fun. But most of all, this is an amazing plant that we are going to be doing a deep dive on this coming Wednesday. If you want to find out more about this incredible new spreader, North African trader that has traveled all over the world and has some very, very, very rare varieties in its small family. But most of all, Borage is a plant that everybody knows and has some really good qualities of strength, courage, and bravery, but is also very much connected to the blue chakra, the throat chakra. So anyway, without giving too many spoiler alerts, if you want to join us for that, that's on Wednesday, and you can find the access point on the website.
Right, so that's very much it from us. Powerful Wavespell, the Red Serpent, is going to put us to the test of our fears, of our energy. We need to keep centered. We've got lots of tools. The plants are here to help us. Make an intention that you will be able to be reborn. We're coming to the point of resurrection again, but this moment, this time, the resurrection is at a global level. So be compassionate and just remember that we're all in this together and we're meant to make it to the other side.
And most of all, this is really what we all signed up for. This is where we get to see whether all of the initiations and inner work that we've been doing is really worth what we thought it was, because this is where we really get tested. Initiations are designed not to cause us suffering, but designed to allow us to evolve and expand. And I would suggest this might be the biggest initiation we've all faced yet. So we're all going to be fine. Hold on to your hats, buckle up, buttercup. This ain't Kansas anymore. And any other phrases that come to mind.
Forced evolution.
Forced evolution, pirate ship ahoy, oi oi mahatis, and everything else you can think of. Have as much fun as possible, everybody.
Yes.
Stay in your heart. In Lakesh, I am another plant like you. And we'll see you all again on the other side. Ciao for now.